Diamondbacks lose today by a score of 11-5 to the Giants. And I asked the question, is it too early to start wondering if any starting pitcher's spot in the rotation is at risk? And more importantly, is Brandon Pfaadt? We're talking about it right here. Don't you guys go anywhere. We're starting in 30 seconds. To another edition of the PHNX Diamondbacks podcast right here on PHNX. My name is Derek Mattia, occasionally known as your mayor of this joint. I am joined, as always, on the ones and twos by my man, large, intimate Kevin Thomas. And we will also be joined by my former co-host and, I guess, backstabber in the podcasting world is how I'm going to label him quite a bit on this episode. It's the one and only Steve Zinsmeister, the Diamondbacks pregame and postgame show host, and my good friend who I was walking around Salt River Fields with today, enjoying the wonderful weather and the Diamondbacks kind of getting their pitchers rung through by the Giants today. It was a lot of offense, not a lot of great pitching. Diamondbacks did a good job generating some offense. Again, none of this really matters because it's spring training. However, does it? Is it? Does it matter when it comes to this competition that we've been talking about with the Arizona Diamondbacks, their starting rotation, and their bullpen competition that they have as well? But, of course, before we get on to it, I wanted to give a shout-out to our sponsor, All Pro Shades Concepts. If you haven't had a chance to check them out, make sure to do so. They are doing a wonderful job at making your home look lovely while also protecting you from the sun and the elements. They do more than just sun, so make sure to check out everything they have going on. Diamondbacks had a big first inning. Outside of that first inning, their offense today went pretty silent. Gabby Moreno had a 3-run dinger that was fun to watch. I was actually out in the grassy area there, Kev, and I got to kind of be close to it. One funny thing that happened was there was a lady who was standing in the outfield that when we were doing laps around Salt River Fields, we saw her at the beginning of the game, and she was ready. And when I say ready, she was ready. She had her glove, she had her mitt, she was ready to go, she was ready to catch a fly ball. The only thing was she was standing on the concrete of the concourse, if you will, at Salt River Fields, and it was very far away. It seemed maybe like she was not fully aware of how far balls travel, or maybe she just wasn't, really aware of where home runs tend to land at Salt River Fields. However, when Gabby hit this dinger, it basically landed right where she was standing. So it made me and Steve feel very foolish for picking on her and for, of course, doubting her. She knew exactly what she was doing. Jake McCarthy had himself a good day today as well. He was 3 for 3 with a run scored, and he continues to be excellent this spring at the dish, still batting over 300. The big story, I guess, from today would be Brandon Pfaadt. And we know that the starting rotation competition is a pretty fierce one. We still don't know what the Arizona Diamondbacks, what Torey Lovullo and Mike Hazen and company are going to do in regards to this starting rotation. It's been a topic that I have beat up quite a bit on this show simply because it really is the biggest story going on for the Diamondbacks. The biggest story for the Dbacks right now is their depth. Their depth right now is good. It's great, but it creates, I guess, some problems, if you will. It creates some problems for some people, maybe people that might be on the outside looking in, maybe people that find themselves not as a part of the starting rotation. It's a difficulty for Torey Lovullo, who gave his thoughts on it, and we'll get to that here shortly. But Brandon Pfaadt definitely struggled today. He was supposed to get 2-3 innings, not necessarily through 3 innings, but like we talked about with Corbin Burnes the other day, it was more about the up downs, getting him at least into the 3rd inning. They also had a pitch count in mind, and unfortunately, when it came to Brandon Pfaadt's day, it did go further than they wanted it to with his pitch count. He really struggled out there at one point with just getting guys out. I mean, he only lasted an inning and a third. He gave up 6 hits, 3 earned runs. He walked 1 and struck out 2. He just didn't have his best stuff today. And Brandon Pfaadt did give his thoughts on the outing. Here's what he had to say first about his day.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 3 innings. Fell a little short of that. Didn't feel the best compared to the first one in Cincy the other day, but I think we hit our pitch count, came out early. Is what it is, but I think we just got ourselves into some deep counts and threw too many pitches and didn't get away with it.
Pfaadt fully knows he's in a competition for his spot, but I think that, again, after an outing like this, when you start to look at the rest of the starting rotation, it gets to a point where you don't want to overreact about one bad outing, especially during spring. You don't want to, start proposing this question that we're proposing on this show, but it is a factor, right? Like, every start is important for these guys because there is not a lot of starts left between now and opening day, and the Diamondbacks have some decisions to make much sooner than that, including decisions that might be made on the other side of their road trip here they're making this weekend to Las Vegas. So we should see some cuts start to happen around then. The Diamondbacks are playing a lot of games over this stretch, including games both here in Phoenix as well as those games in Las Vegas. You also have, several other games kind of very close together. I think they said they're playing like 7 games in 4 days or something crazy like that. So a lot of the younger talent is going to be needed to just fill the roster and play all of these games. But again, it's a great opportunity for these guys to be seen and at least make some sort of impression on the coaching staff while they have this opportunity. But when it comes to the bullpen, when it comes to the starting rotation, I feel like every single day is important. Kyle Nelson didn't have a great day out there for this team. He's also kind of competing for a spot. Scott McGuff went out there. He gave up 2 hits and earned run. You got a couple of other guys, of course, a lot of names on this list that did come out in relief aren't going to be guys that factor in as much this year to the major league roster. However, the ones that did, or the ones that do factor in, they didn't have themselves a great day today. But Brandon Pfaadt discussed why he thought he struggled today, and it had a lot to do with being aggressive in the zone.
Nothing. I mean, I think pitches weren't in the zone. We weren't aggressive today, and I think ultimately that was the major key. The other day we were aggressive. We were throwing everything. Today we weren't as aggressive in the zone. I think we threw a lot of pitches because of that, but that's okay. That's what spring training's for, and just getting back in the groove.
And he's right. This is what spring training is for. The problem is that at the same time, guys like Pfaadt are still competing for their spot, and that's what makes this tough, right? The coaching staff, Torey Lovullo, he needs to make the right call here, but they also have limited options when it comes to what they can do with the guys that are on the roster before you start talking about players no longer being on the roster. Deep down inside, it still feels, and based on some conversations I had today with other members of the media, the feeling is still that Jordan Montgomery will most likely be the odd man out here, that Jordan Montgomery will somehow be the one that is traded before opening day or at some point. The thing about Monty is he is set to make a start on Friday for this team, his first start of the spring, and we'll see how he looks when he comes out and he competes on Friday. The Diamondbacks really need to kind of show Montgomery off if they intend to trade him, right? They need him to go out there, pitch well, and to be seen for other teams to know about it. There's a good chance that there's teams that are still desperate for starting pitching prior to getting into the regular season. There's also a chance that an injury might happen that requires a team to desperately suddenly need starting pitching, and they might be willing to give up more than anyone was for Montgomery just to make sure that they can fill out their starting rotation. So there's a lot to that. However, it does feel like if no moves are made, right, that Brandon Pfaadt does become an easy choice for this team. Not an easy choice based on his performance, but I guess an obvious choice based on his options and the fact that they know that he is still, despite the fact he has been very good for this team on the main roster and did contribute so much last season. He was the most consistent starting pitcher for this team last year. He still has some development. He's still a young player, And again, it's not about him not necessarily earning it or deserving it. It's more about the fact that it's just the situation. They don't want to get rid of anybody. If they don't want to get rid of anybody, the opportunity is there to possibly move Ryan Nelson to the bullpen as a long reliever and have Brandon Pfaadt be available for depth when they need that depth, right? But yeah, Ocean View Coffee Shop says Brandon is my guy, and Kevo echoes that. He says he's a sweet, sweet boy. He absolutely is. And we've never been more back now that Roger Beshens and his football slider are in our chat. So that's something great to see. That means it's officially the beginning of the season. But I guess in the end, does a start like this matter? Probably not. It's probably not going to be the deciding factor if Brandon Pfaadt makes, is part of the starting rotation or not. It's just there's not a lot of starts for these guys left, right? You look at how many weeks are left of spring training, there's a good chance that Brandon Pfaadt has 5-6 starts left in him before we get to opening day. So each start is fairly important when it comes to earning his role in the starting rotation and kind of outplaying, the other guys that are up for it. I have no idea how this is going to go, like, honestly. And that's the reason why, as much as it feels like an overreaction, it's might not be, right? Because again, every start is probably going to matter. Every start's going to be taken into consideration. If these other guys continue to shove the way they've been pitching and performing, it's really about, who are they going to put in that rotation, who they aren't, and what they're going to do with those guys. The young guys, Nelson and Pfaadt, they just unfortunately are a victim of the fact that they still have options left, and there's still that availability for them to keep those guys stretched out in Reno while, hoping, at some point to get them back up, but not hoping that it happens due to catastrophic injury or some other reason. I don't know. This is why managing is tough. And this is why when you have depth, the way that Torey Lovullo does have depth this year, it's not an easy decision. The Stone Garrett just cleared like waivers where no one even picked him up. And he was outrighted. And that was a guy who not that long ago, the Diamondbacks absolutely needed in their lineup in order to have, have a complete lineup. When you kind of take a look at the past, few years beyond, probably, like they had good depth last year. The injuries did away with that, but they did have good depth. And you could even say they had pretty good depth in 2023. But, when you go back further than that, Torey Lovullo had some struggles at times filling out the roster with the best available players and finding those best available players in the organization, rather than this good problem he has of too many good players, too much depth, and having to make the tough decision about what to do with all of it. And this is what Torey had to say in regards to how he is, kind of hoping to roadmap this whole situation and how difficult the decisions are.
Yeah, it's been a big challenge for me to get the right guys innings. For example, I know Hampson, who I want to play every day, and we want to get a good look at him, which we will. We will continue. He's going to get a ton of at-bats, but, he's backed up a couple times. He's got a day off, and I would love to get him start after start after start after start. That's the situation I'm in right now with some really good quality backups that we got to evaluate. Our starters are our starters, and I got to get them time. But, when you look at position players, we have a number of really good athletes that are ready to step in if needed. And then we all know what's going on with the pitching staff. Those are probably be our toughest discussions. And I don't look forward to it. That wears on me. It's hard for me. But we're going to take the best team and move it forward and help us win baseball games. That's the space I'll be coming from.
Torey is a great manager because of his connection with his players, because of his connection with or not even just his connection with his players, but the way that he connects the team. And we were talking about how the Suns kind of need to bring Torey in and figure out a way to fix this broken situation with the Suns, because it feels like the coaching and the managing of that situation with that team couldn't be more night and day as far as what's happening with the Diamondbacks. However, what he said there is true. Torey hates these tough conversations, and he doesn't really want to have this problem where he has to decide on who makes it in and who doesn't, especially when it's not a matter of guys not deserving it. All 7 starting pitchers probably deserve it to a certain extent. And to be honest, the only one that might not is Montgomery. However, if you take a look at the work he put in this offseason, the shape that he's in, maybe that's not the case either. He had a bad season last year, a really bad season that was impacted by a bunch of variables, right? But it feels like he is very much back on track this year. And, again, you got to give credit where credit is due, that at least he got himself in good shape and is ready for the season. That's the worst part about this is, like I've said, there's even young guys in the system who we're going to talk about here in a little bit because the top 30 prospects list for 2025 dropped. And even some of those young guys have experience playing at a major league level. And even those guys might deserve a shot at this point in their career to be on a major league roster. But it's not a terrible problem to have. I just think when you have a heart like Torey Lovullo does and you care about your players as much as he does, it does make it difficult, right? It makes it not pleasant to have to decide on which of your kids you're going to send off to Reno and which kids you're going to keep here with you at the house. So one kid, though, that I definitely know is sticking around is Drey Jameson. I had a chance to talk to him in the clubhouse today, mostly because I wanted to compliment him on his amazing sneakers, his cleats today. No, they were not Scooby-Doo. This time, they were Tomater on one foot and Lightning McQueen on the other foot. The man has impeccable style and taste, and I can never question anything he does. He told me that he's looking to hit some pretty high numbers on the radar gun this year, looking to hit 102, which is something he feels like he's capable of at this point. He's maxed out so far this spring at 100.2, so not too far away from his goal there. This brings me back to the conversation we were having with the bullpen and closer role, where I do feel Jameson, I don't even know if I'd call him a dark horse anymore. I feel like Jameson, if he can hit those numbers, if he can do it with regularity, and as he told me, can do it with accuracy, I think that he could be the man we're looking at as the next closer of this Diamondbacks team, right? And I'm beating that drum a lot. Or am I not, Kevin? I'm fine with that, though. I'm fine with continuing this conversation on and on.
Yeah, no, and I wanted to mention one thing about Drey Jameson. I looked it up. Cars debuted in 2006.
Yeah.
He was about 10 when Cars came out. And this is a perfect example of, like, when you're a kid, you don't have money for things, you can't really buy what you want to buy.
Yeah.
And then when you get your first big boy check, what do? You go buy some Lightning McQueen Tomater accessories for your baseball kit
and,
there.
And Scooby-Doo is just timeless. Scooby-Doo never, there's never a bad time for
Scooby-Doo, friend of all ages. I love Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite cartoon growing up. I don't know where that falls in your rankings, but Scooby-Doo is an all-timer.
I am not a huge fan of Scooby-Doo. I won't lie.
Wow.
It's mostly because it's the same episode every time. But there was a later variation, a more recent variation of Scooby-Doo that I found to be pretty hilarious. Side note, I do leave Scooby-Doo on for my dogs every single day when I leave the house. Because I feel like
leave something on for the dogs. I usually leave like ESPN so that my dog can know ball. My dog has to know ball if I know ball. And so I leave ESPN on for the dog.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good move. Reese is standing here in this room with me, and he had the audacity to send a message in our chat that says, Cars came out before I was born, Reese?
Yeah, it came out a month before I was born.
I thought I could count on you to not be there. I told you.
I'm sorry.
Don't make me feel old, Reese. That was the number one rule we discussed. I was too old to go watch Cars in the theater. But I didn't have a kid left.
Heartstrings now.
Yeah. It's
I want to cry for you.
Just get out. Just
I'm
go.
Sorry, Dick. I'm sorry.
I was really proud of you for the food reviews. No,
he does
don't.
this to us every time.
I know. Don't.
Every time.
Go make Max buy me a beer, please.
No, go make Max get beers for the office.
Yeah, Max, beers for the office, Max. Oh,
Hear, hear.
Yeah, everybody's on board with that. Well, we have lots more to talk about, like I said, including Steve Zinsmeister showing up at some point. I don't know. He said he had players to interview. I don't believe him. I think he's just hanging out with Bear, my other old co-host, and I think that they're leaving me out because they love to do that. But we're going to talk more about the Arizona Diamondbacks top 30 prospects on the other side of this break. don't you guys go anywhere. You're watching the PHNX Diamondbacks show. Again, got to give a huge shout out to All Pro Shade Concepts. They have been in business for 20 years in the Valley, and they started making window shades by hand for friends and family in Phoenix. And I love that story because I don't have that kind of ingenuity. I don't have that kind of dedication to anything. And thank God the good people at All Pro Shade Concepts do. They also make some incredible commercials that I'm entirely jealous of how well they're put together, how funny they are. And they're a great group of people over there. So you can extend your outdoor living space with a custom fit awning. You can also get them to provide some roll down window shades for all of your windows in your home. And they also have all sorts of other things that will help you out during just protect you from the elements. They can replace and fix most old and outdated patio shades and motorized awnings, and they are the most trusted local shade company, voted #1 by Ranking Arizona for patio shades last year in 2024. They're licensed, bonded, and insured, and you can call them at 623-204-1476 or visit allproshadeconcepts.com to schedule your free estimate today. Also, of course, we love Bet365 because Bet365 helps to make watching sports even more fun. And whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. They have over 90 million users worldwide. And of course, last night's game was a great time to bet against the Suns because if you did, Suns came back from a pretty big deficit that was over 20 points. Had you bet on the Clippers last night, you would have still won with the Bet365 early payout offer, which again, if your team goes up by 20 in basketball, you're a winner no matter what happens with Kevin Durant in the fourth quarter. So breaking news right now from Bet365, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up, use that code of PHNX365, deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 or more to get $150 in bonus bets if your team wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, players, props, futures, and so much more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or over and physically located in Arizona. If you're someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, text NEXT STEP to 53342. or visit problemgambling.az.gov. All right, Kev. Well, wake up, babe. The Dbacks top 30 prospects list just dropped this morning, and there's a big shakeup at the top. I don't know, big shakeup. There are a lot of things in baseball, and this is the reason why I needed somebody of Jesse's intelligence here to always explain things to me. But there are so many things in baseball that I really have to ask, does it matter? How much does it impact things? And I guess really what it comes down to it is the top 30 prospects list gives a ranking of your prospects and allows organizations and front offices to use that number to tout how good some of these guys are, especially if they start making trades and moves, and using that for the return, right? But this one was very interesting for us because the top 5 dropped, and there are some names on here that I'm sure a lot of Arizona Diamondbacks fans aren't familiar with, or at least one name that's very high. We got Jordan Lawlar as the Diamondbacks overall top prospect. Kev, we'll start there. Any surprises to see Jordan Lawlar back on top as the #1 overall prospect in the organization?
No, it's kind of a situation where I'm excited to see what Jordan Lawlar can do, Derek. With some opportunity
time, right?
And with some runway there. But yeah, no surprise with Jordan Lawlar at 1.
He was a star today. He was a star out there in spring training. He was really he was very very exciting. A lot of people wanted to see him. A lot of people wanted his autograph, and he has a weird star aura about him already. I know it's something far too early to say. I don't know. Maybe it was the way that his beard lined up. Maybe it was how handsome he is in real life. I don't know. It was something to get over. But it's the #2 name on that list that I believe is going to surprise a lot of Diamondbacks fans who may never have heard of Demetrio Miguel Crisantes from right here at Nogales High School in Arizona. He was the 7th round of the pick of the 2022 MLB June amateur draft, and my man is putting up some big numbers for the Arizona Diamondbacks so far. It doesn't matter where he plays, he just succeeds. In 2023 for the I guess the Arizona, the complex league. He slashed 347, 417, 465 with an 883 OPS. In 2024, for two teams, including Visalia and the Arizona Complex League, he slashed 341, 429, 492 with a 921 OPS. My man is killing it, and I think that again, very exciting for the Diamondbacks to have a young player like this coming up and making a splash like this, and again, a guy who has done it fairly quickly. He's only 19 years old right now and already has come up and made a big splash on this team. Going back to that list, of course, a couple other guys. Slade Caldwell there at third, Gilbert Diaz at fourth, and Adrian Del Castillo rounding out the top five. And again, Gilbert and Adrian Del Castillo, both guys made themselves made a name for themselves in this organization last year. Guys that honestly, both of them came up fairly big when called upon. They didn't exactly have perfect seasons by any stretch of the imagination, but both had some pretty big games. Both made some pretty impressive debuts, including obviously what Adrian Del Castillo was able to do there with his bat. King Snakemeister says a hell of a lot of infielders in the top 15. You're not wrong about that. I think the concerning thing is the lack of actual pitching. I mean, the pitching depth is not great for this team. We have some players of note that we have for the rest of the top 30. Drew Jones coming in at number 7th overall. Why do I want to panic about that, Kev?
Why do you want to panic about that?
Why do I want to? Why do I want?
Space there.
Can we talk about it?
Yeah, explain the way you feel. Why are you terrified right now?
I don't know really. I think obviously it's the fact that Drew Jones was such a important piece last year. He was their second overall prospect behind Jordan Lawler, and kind of dropping down behind Slade Caldwell, behind some other guys that kind of flew up the list and passed right by him. Doesn't make me feel great about our number 2 overall pick.
Yeah, no, from the number 2 overall pick to number 7 overall prospect there, it's a little bit of a fall, Derek. What do you expect though this upcoming year from Drew Jones?
I don't know. I think the big thing is obviously taking steps forward. Like, there's a lot of things about Drew Jones that we know he's going to do well, right? I think there is, I think that, his hit grade has kind of gone down and his power grade has gone down. And I think that's the two biggest things, right? He has already not proven that he is not ready yet, but again, he's just not having the same success guys his age are. He's not having the same success in the league, and again, he still has a ton of potential, but I think that he just hasn't really gotten much going. He did get better at his strikeout rate. There's things he improved on, and I think it's a matter of coaching, right? Really, when it comes down to it, the reason why you draft someone like Drew Jones is pure athletic talent, pedigree based on who his father is, but more than that, you know that you are getting a very talented athlete. I think that what I've seen in baseball is if you are athletic enough, if you're talented enough and coachable, then they can get you, to where you need to be. But really, when it comes down to it, I think it's, there's high expectations when you're drafted that high. And when you don't live up to it, it's easy for them to kind of rank you lower and move you down in the rankings as far as the prospects go. The thing about it is I don't feel like it's wrong. So that's what I hate. Does that make sense? Like, I do feel like I felt like that last year when he was number 2, and I was just like, I feel like there's better players in the system, than him, and guys that are more major league ready than him. So I don't know how you could see him as being the number 2, prospect in on the team. But let's see, who else did we have on there, Kev, besides?
We also had
Gino Groover, number 10. That's great for Gino. We also have Yumin Lin. He dropped down a little bit to 11th, but still, he is Corn, and we'll never doubt Corn. Corn will always be, he is going to be great for this team, and I can't wait to see him make his way up. However, again, it's like talking about the major league roster, right? Like, when do these guys get an opportunity? Next season might be that time, but opportunities like they had last year for Gilbert to kind of come up and get some starts. Probably, I guess, hopefully, fingers crossed, won't be the case this year. Hopefully they won't need them. They may need those guys, though, very soon, and that could be as soon as next year. Let's see, rounding out there, we got Blake Walston kind of dropped down there to number 30. Tim Tawa there at 25. Not disappointing, just compared to when you kind of look at some of where these guys were last year. Tim Tawa obviously different, but where you see where some of these guys ranked, Blake Walston didn't drop too much, but at one point he was pretty high up in the Diamondbacks prospect. So feels like Walston might be a guy that is losing some steam there within the organization. But hey, we'll see how everything plays out. I just love to put too much thought into the prospects list because, like I said, at the end of the day, it really comes down to the ranking helping the organization with moving maybe some of these guys, or maybe another organization feeling like they got a bigger, maybe got themselves a good deal in a trade by getting a young prospect. There's a couple of guys we didn't put up there, but Tommy Troy, he's still at 8. Ryan Waldschmidt, another outfielder, he's kind of moved up there in their rankings as well. So, I think it was King Snake said it earlier, a lot of infielders in the top 15, and a lot of outfielders too. Just not enough starting pitching. You would love to see the Diamondbacks have, again, that next round of starting pitching. Christian Mena, he's on here at 13th. Daniel Egan, he's at 16. So they have some guys right there, but all the other pitchers kind of drop down below that, and not a lot on this list for the top 30. So it's the future of this team. The Diamondbacks are always going to be a team that's going to need to build from within like this. These prospects are always going to be important to the organization because this is where their next, future batch of stars is going to come from. I've said it before, I'll say it again. This team has done an excellent job at getting talent, finding talent, scouting talent, and then signing that talent to a contract extension far before they get to the point where they've really flourished and become the player that this organization knows they can be. They did it with Ketel Marte. They were able to do it with Corbin Carroll. And now this offseason, they do it with Geraldo Perdomo. So these prospects, again, the Diamondbacks are a team that are going to need all these guys. And these will be names that hopefully very soon we see making an impact at a major league level. But that's all I got from that. We do have one Steve Zinsmeister joining us here shortly, and I'm very excited for that. So we're going to bring him in here on the other side of this break. Of course, you guys are watching the PHNX Dbacks show. Don't you go anywhere. Well, if you are looking for a healthier way to relieve aches and pains while getting a better night's sleep, try Cornbread Hemp's USDA organic CBD gummies, especially if you're not interested in that other stuff, because these CBD gummies, which are organic and made right here in the United States, are the highest quality full spectrum gummies on the market. They help with stress relief, better recovery, and improved sleep. Sleep is so important. I can't stress this enough. One of the only ways for your body to truly recover is to get a good night's sleep, and you can do so with the full spectrum CBD gummies from Cornbread Hemp. You can take Cornbread's 2-minute quiz to get custom recommendations tailored to your needs, which I did, and it was very helpful. And whether it's for aches, pains, sleep support, or stress relief. And if you want to give Cornbread a try, they're offering PHNX listeners 30% off your first order. Just visit cornbreadhemp.com/PHNX and use code PHNX at checkout. That's cornbreadhemp.com/PHNX and use that code of PHNX for 30% off your first order. This is the good life. Well, I don't even walk around downtown Phoenix anymore because I have Waymos everywhere, and Waymo gets me where I'm going, where I want to go safely, quietly, securely, and quickly. And I love their autonomous ride-hailing service, which consists of all-electric Jaguar I-Paces. Not a bad car to ride around town in. They've done 150,000 trips per week across San Francisco, Los Angeles, and right here in Phoenix. And they were the first company to ever serve a fully autonomous ride with no human behind the wheel back in 2015. So download the Waymo One app today and ride right now. Go outside, get yourself an autonomous car to drive you around. I don't know. There's nothing that makes me feel more like the future than that. There's still other things too. Don't get me wrong. Because I'm, again, as Reese established earlier, I'm very old, and I've been through many phases of having to carry music around. Like I carried cassette tapes at one point in a box. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. I don't want to go back that far. But speaking of going back far, I am thrilled to be joined by like someone who I used to consider a friend, but before he showed up on my block doing podcasts about the Arizona Diamondbacks, it is the pregame and postgame host for the Arizona Diamondbacks. It's none other than Mr. Steve Zinsmeister. Hi, pal. How's it going?
Hey, Derek. Long time no see. I feel like your viewer Candace, who just posted, "I'm late, but I'm here."
Yeah.
So I want that to be on the record.
That's you. Yeah, like long time no see. 2 hours ago, before I was sitting in traffic and before the Diamondbacks lost by a whole lot of runs, but it's spring training, so we don't care about that. I'm very thankful to have you here, but I gotta scream at you because you started a podcast. It doesn't involve me, and I'm angry. I'm angry, and you knew I would be angry, and you did it anyway, and that's fine. But I just want you to know my feelings are hurt.
Yeah, no, for those who don't know, in another life, years and years ago, you and I did a podcast together.
Yeah. Yes.
That's had many iterations over the years, but I don't want you to take too much offense to this, Derek. Listen, we had a lot of conversations of what this podcast was going to look like. You never came up, don't worry. But
not once.
No. But listen, I think that, and we've talked about this a lot, there's a lot of great avenues for you to listen to people talk about the Arizona Diamondbacks. And us at the team, we decided we want to be one of them too. And so we talked about a lot of different ways this podcast could look. And we ultimately came up with what we think is going to be a really cool look at kind of a behind the scenes sort of talking with a lot of players and coaches throughout the course of the year.
It's awesome. It's the Rattle On podcast. And I guess my first question about it was going to be, how dare you? My second question was going to be, who the hell do you think you are? But we'll just move past that and we'll get to the actual questions. Specifically, you're doing it with Diamondbacks players, which are kind of slightly more qualified to talk about the team than I am, I suppose. So I guess I'll let that one slide. But you have been out there chatting with a lot of guys. Has anybody stood out to you so far as like a surprising person that you enjoyed talking to, or maybe like somebody that was your favorite and you maybe didn't expect them to be like one of your favorite interviews?
Yeah, I should have known you'd find a way to make this about you.
Always, every time.
So we launched the Dbacks Rattle On podcast about a week ago. We launched with 7 episodes on dbacks.tv. You should go check them out right now. But
yes,
we launched with a variety of conversations. So I talked with the president and CEO, Derek Hall, about the business side, the general manager, Mike Hazen, about roster construction and, some of the offseason moves. Torey Lovullo, that's up there right now. But what you're talking about, the ones that kind of stand out, a guy that I know you and I both appreciate a lot is Ryan Thompson. And that conversation stands out to me because I think he's just so honest about everything. So I had asked Thompson, and this is in the podcast, if you go and listen to it or go and watch it on dbacks.tv, I feel like everybody with the closer situation, everyone's talking about Justin Martinez, AJ Puck, Kendall Graveman, Kevin Ginkel, and deservedly so. They have a lot of good options.
Yeah.
I straight up asked Ryan Thompson, do you want to be the closer? And do you want to be in that conversation with all those other guys? And his answer, I'm going to paraphrase it for you, but you should go check it out so you can get it in its entirety. He basically said the quiet part out loud, where he said, if you just try to be a righty specialist, you're setting the bar too low for yourself. You should try to be the guy, no matter what position you play. And he just has the right motivations. And he flat out said, yeah, I could be a great closer. I believe that I can be a really good closer in the major leagues, whether it's now or in the future. But he also was very honest in saying, am I the best option right now with what we have on the roster? And he even said, probably not. I'll let you go check out his answer for yourself as to who he thinks should be the closer. But it was just a really honest conversation. And I left that talk with Ryan Thompson feeling like I was ready to run through a brick wall. baseball. And so I think that's probably got to be my pick for definitely one of the great conversations we have up right now at dbacks.tv.
Man, absolutely the same. Just personally from the interviews we've done, and I think it was because I didn't expect that much out of Ryan Thompson. I mean, doing this that at times, you kind of can get people that are excited about interviews, and then at times there are people that are just doing it because they were asked to, and it might not be the thing they want to do today. But with Ryan, it was always enjoyable conversations, whether it was about pro wrestling or baseball. But the pro wrestling ones are way better. I do say though that it's the honesty. It's how open he is, and you don't really get that because again, sometimes what does a player have to gain by putting themselves out there, right? And letting people know how they truly feel or how they truly want to be perceived, or in this case, right? Like being honest that you want something that you don't even feel like you're necessarily the best candidate for. Like, yes, I want it, but however, I feel like we as an organization have better options. And that's that there's a lot of self-awareness there, but there's a lot of also honesty, in that. I know you conducted one of my favorite player interviews with Geraldo Perdomo as a pregame interview last year. And of course, my favorite part about that, which I've talked about on this show several times, was his answer about like, what is like, what's his favorite, what's his favorite moment in baseball, or what moment does, gets him like pumped. And he talked about being down 0-2 in the count. Right. And like, that was such a unique answer because who in their right mind, other than a baseball sicko, would say down 0-2 in the count? A lot of people would be like, after I hit a home run, that's a pretty good moment, or whatever the case may be. Maybe after we win, but no, Perdomo just loves ball that much that's his favorite spot to be in.
I think the question I asked Domo, he had just come off of his IL stint at the beginning of the season, and I had asked him what he missed the most.
That's what it was. What he missed most about baseball. Yeah.
What did you miss the most while you were injured and you couldn't be out there with your teammates? And what are the answers that you expect to get, right? Like, oh, I just miss being around the guys.
Yeah,
or
being in the clubhouse with the boys, or
right.
road trips or something like that, or...
And he very subtly looks at me and goes, being down 0-2. And I don't think it really registered with me at the time. I was like, is there a language barrier thing that I'm not picking up on here? Like, I'm the one
that is.
I was like, am I the one struggling to understand?
I screwed this up, right? I was the one that said it right.
Yeah. And I think it's just the mentality that you grow accustomed to with Perdomo. And I feel this way about a lot of players for the Diamondbacks these days. And maybe he's rubbing off in a good way when it comes to approach at the plate. But yeah, that was one of the more intriguing answers that I got in an interview all of last year. And I'm excited to sit down with Jerry at some point. We haven't done that on the podcast just yet. But with, the context of him signing his new deal here this spring and just what he means to this roster, he's one of the best quotes you're going to find and one of the players that's most respected.
Yeah. And I was just talking about it a bit before you got on the show, but the Diamondbacks have done just an excellent job. And obviously not everything is you're going to have some swings and misses, right? Not every, you can't keep every player. You can't, have everybody always work out, but Mike Hazen has just done an incredible job at identifying talent and like locking them into a contract extension right before, that contract extension, the value of that deal probably, would have gone up exponentially, with Corbin Carroll before his Rookie of the Year season, Ketel Marte, prior to him doing all the stuff that he's done over the last few seasons, and now Perdomo. And I think I guess, what are your thoughts on, especially Perdomo, like what that means to the rest of the team to see someone like Jerry get that contract extension? And again, someone who, I'm not going to say he doesn't deserve it or his numbers don't warrant it, but there would be some people that would argue like, hey, you're giving this to a guy that, put up this or this or this. And like, it just feels like his value goes far beyond the stat line and you can't really quantify it.
Yeah, it seems like if we were having this conversation 15, 20 years ago, I don't know that a player of Geraldo Perdomo's mold is what most people would be looking for in a shortstop to extend long-term. But the Diamondbacks value very specific things. They value defense first and foremost. And while Jerry might not have like the most athleticism on the squad, like, maybe that belongs to another player. Like Cattell is kind of flashy with his glove, certainly. Blaze Alexander, when healthy, can make great plays that make you go, wow, or Jordan Lawler. But Perdomo makes every play. He makes the easy ones 100% of the time.
Yeah.
He makes the relatively routine one 100% of the time. And then he'll make the plays that wow you as well. So defensively, Torey Lovullo has basically called him a coach on the field. He is in charge of defensive positioning. He's the middle linebacker or the quarterback, depending on which side of the football you want to equate this to. And so, like, to see a guy with his background who came into this organization at such a young age internationally work his way up to this point. I mean, there's a reason that this organization kept him around for so long. They realize his innate ability to lead. And he may not hit a lot of home runs. In fact, he didn't hit very many at all last year. That doesn't seem to be an issue for them. They don't care so much about the power lacking there because they know what they're getting in so many other areas. And frankly, leadership is going to be super important this year, in a year where Christian Walker leaves in free agency. Jock Peterson, I know he wasn't here a long time, but he's certainly a guy that a lot of the young players looked up to. And now it seems very quickly that Jerry is that guy, that a lot of people will look up to him and Cattell and Gino and a lot of the other veterans that they have. So locking up Jerry, super important for a team like the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yeah. And I don't know if there's another sport, like all sports, confidence is important in every sport, but I don't know if there's a sport where confidence is as important as baseball, right? And not only does Perdomo kind of like exude confidence that's infectious and makes you feel confident just by his presence, but there's also, as we've discussed, what he does for the pitching staff. And when you have guys kind of bringing it up, when you have Jordan Montgomery last year who was struggling, talking about how much it helped him to have Jerry out there giving him those words of encouragement, even though it's small, even though it might seem unimportant, it ends up being important when you're talking to the players that he's impacted. When his leadership kind of resonates to some of those guys and you talk to them, they'll tell you to your face, like, no, that meant the world to me. That him doing that stuff really did help me, kind of turn things around or help me through a game where I was struggling.
Yeah, and I haven't talked with Jerry about this specifically, but today I shot my latest episode of the Dbacks Rattle On podcast with Jake McCarthy. And while it's certainly a different context, I had asked him because, I think he said this is his 5th major league spring training already. And I look around the clubhouse and I see a lot of guys that I kind of think of like them, where, they're still really young. Jerry just got his first contract for the most part, but they've been here a while. Yeah. And I had asked Jake, I was like, do you feel like you're sort of a veteran now? And even though he doesn't feel that way, he is starting to kind of take guys under his wing the same way that other guys took them under their wings, a handful of years ago. So the next great Diamondbacks team of the future, like after the next couple of years, like that next wave of Diamondbacks that you were talking about earlier before I came on with all the prospects, those guys are learning the most important baseball lessons of their life right now from guys like Perdomo and Jake and so many other veterans that are on this team that have really high expectations.
Well said. No wonder you left me behind. I guess this all makes sense. Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about your thoughts on some of these additions during the offseason that they made on the other side of this break. So you hang tight. Don't you go anywhere. Don't you guys go anywhere. You're watching the PHNX Diamondback Show. Well, I have my little pizza box. It's just out of reach down here. I'm going to get it anyway. And it's empty. There's Spinato's on set, and it's empty. And I hate that it's empty because I was so excited when I saw these. I thought, oh, we got Spinato's in the office. Well, that's because Spinato's is delicious, and they make some of the best pizza in the Valley. They're also, it's the place to be for Suns games. So if you are looking to hang out with fellow Suns fans, you can do so at the official watch parties throughout the season, where you can watch with the Phoenix Suns dancers and my buddy, the Gorilla. All you got to do is head over there, stop by for your chance. You can win free tickets. You can play pizza, kind of like horse, shoot some baskets for win yourself some prizes, maybe win free pizza for a year. You can do all of that at Spinato's Pizzeria. Make sure to check out when they're having their events. And again, feel the energy, cheer for your team, and maybe even win big. You can mark your calendar, Suns fans. The excitement starts at Spinato's. Get all the info on watch parties and pizza basketball contests at spinatospizzeria.com. Spinato's, your official pizza of the Phoenix Suns. Well, I need to get out to Gila River Resorts and Casinos because I never have a bad time out there. And I'm going to get Damon, who's over there finishing up the Cardinal show, and we're going to go bet on a little red action on the roulette tables. Maybe splash some cash around, but it's a great place to go for not only a night out on the town with your friends, a great night with your loved one, a staycation, and so much more. So make sure to check out all of the excitement Gila River Resorts has to offer. You do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playatgila.com for more details. And Kev, something I don't know if you know about, but Damon always used to want to leave me out of the boys' trips to Gila River Resorts and Casinos. So
What?
Yeah. It was weird. And of course, you knowing me, we've known each other now for a while. Happy belated birthday, by the way, to large intimate Kevin Thomas. Birthday was yesterday. I hope you had a great time.
I did.
But yeah, we need to go celebrate. Maybe Gila River is the boys trip for maybe Kevo's birthday.
I think Gila River is the best spot to celebrate any occasion, to be honest with you. A birthday, an anniversary, even a little staycation for the anniversary. Nice little romantic getaway. Who knows?
Love that. Love that. I hate traveling. So again, staycations, it's the way to go. Let's bring Steve back in here because I need to get Steve's thoughts on staycations. First of all, I know you love those. Staycations?
Yeah, actually,
out of town?
I don't do a lot of staycations. My wife and I got married last year, and we decided to go to Montana, a place we've never been before. We wanted an experience. So I don't know that I'm an expert on staycations. Say again?
How was that? Montana?
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah. Yeah, we went to Glacier National Park. We literally saw like a picture of people getting married in Glacier on Instagram, and we were sold.
And we were like, that's it. That's what I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, we packed our bags, me, my wife, and my stepdaughter, and we went up to Montana and got married. That was in the middle of last season, by the way.
That's amazing. Yeah, you showed me some incredible pictures from that, and that was a beautiful, beautiful way to spend. That's the way people should do things. See an Instagram picture, be like, I want that, and then make it happen for yourself. So I'm manifesting something similar for the Arizona Diamondbacks when it comes to a World Series ring in 2025. But one way that they can very much get there is with the addition of Corbin Burnes. I've had to get everybody's thoughts on this, Steve, because it just seems like a wild thing that happened. What was your kind of reaction to first hearing the news that the Diamondbacks had added Corbin Burnes to their starting rotation?
Yeah, heck of a Christmas present, right?
It really was. It really was.
It's funny, the more I talk to players on the team and staff about the addition of Corbin Burnes, the more I realize that none of them thought they were even remotely in the market for starting pitching, regardless of the level. I didn't envision, I don't think the front office envisioned that they would be in the market for a starting pitcher, but when it is the starting pitcher, then the conversation changes. So I had the same reaction a lot of people did. I think he's a perennial Cy Young candidate that is going to be really, really good for a long time. And in the minimal amount of time we've seen him in spring, his velocity is up. Which even he has admitted is kind of baffling to him. He's like, I'm not doing anything like particularly different. I'm not trying to throw harder. So that could be a really good sign too. I know that he tinkered a little bit with the cutter. He's a master of the cutter. And so that's certainly something that a lot of players could maybe even glean from him is, you know, could he sort of impact the rest of the rotation in a way more so than just, you know, hey, he's going to win a lot of games. But I mean, think about what some of these young guys like Pfaadt and Nelson that they can draw from a pitcher like Corbin Burnes, even if it's not like asking him direct questions, just from observing him and the way he goes about his business. So this rotation, it's been well documented. It's stacked. And I don't know how they're going to figure out the tough questions that they have in regards to who stays and, you know, do you throw guys in the bullpen or in Reno, but what a problem to have.
Yeah.
And the Diamondbacks continue to show that they're willing to pay top dollar to get elite talent.
That's why I still feel like at the end of the day, the smartest move is to just keep everybody, figure out a way for them to go where they need to go. It's unfortunate for some of the younger guys based on the situation, but I think that if they're professionals, they understand the situation as well, right? They understand that already, 2-3 spots in the rotation are already occupied. Those are already taken. and you might have a battle for 2 of the 5 spots, but outside of that, it's still one of those things that, like Corbin Burnes said in his press conference, you're never going to get through a season with just 5 starting pitchers. The depth is needed, and the Diamondbacks have that depth, and it's not depth that like they had last year where they kind of had to scramble and call up someone like Gilbert Diaz, who did a good job, but maybe got called up a little bit earlier than they anticipated or maybe wanted to, just did it out of need. And, again, that's something that they most likely won't have to do unless, a move is imminent or something of the sort. But Burnes, I do like the fact that he talked about being a leader. He talked about having those conversations with the young guys and wanting to do that, wanting to share with them. You brought it up, but Brandon Pfaadt throws a cutter, right? And he was talking about it today, how he's kind of talked to him a little bit. And again, it's going to be different as the season progresses, right? There's going to be chances on road trips and other times where you're just hanging out, and to be able to pick, I guess, the brain of a pitcher of his caliber is, again, it's kind of like what we were saying with Jerry Perdomo's value. You can't really quantify how important that could be for the young pitchers on this staff, especially considering that for the time being, he's going to be the ace this year and beyond. And those guys are going to be part of a, rotation alongside of him. So I'm sure he wants to do everything he can to help them progress in their careers and get better and become the best versions of themselves. And again, it might have just been the right answer, but he just gave those kind of answers already that made me feel like the Diamondbacks added more than just a Cy Young candidate. They added another one of those leaders that you said earlier, that this team needs.
Yeah, and if you go check out on the podcast, shameless plug for the podcast again, the Dbacks Rattle On podcast, we started, or I guess it was the second episode, I talked with GM Mike Hazen, and I asked Hazen, where is your attention in regards to give me the name of a player that, maybe not everyone is paying close attention to, but you are. And he didn't give me a specific name, but he gave me a group that was fascinating. And he said, I'm focused on the group of starting pitchers that are in Reno, the guys that are not quite major leaguers, but have major league experience or are really close. Like we're talking about Tommy Henry, Christian Mena, Yu-Min Lin, Blake Walston. Who am I missing? There's a 5th one in that group that I just escaped me. Gilbert Diaz. Thank you. And so like he's thinking about that group. And in my head, I'm like, dude, you still have 7 quality major league guys that you got to figure out how to piece that together. And he's like, no. I'm thinking about what's next. And that's not to be dismissive of the problem that they have, which again is a very good problem, but
sure.
It just goes to show you the lesson that I don't want to say learned last year because they knew, but having starting pitching depth, like you said, it's everything. I mean, imagine if last year, instead of scrambling for, 4 or 5 guys to try in the major leagues for the first time, imagine if they had a major league quality starting guy sitting in Reno ready to go,
right,
who's motivated to get back there. And this isn't me advocating for Ryan Nelson or Brandon Pfaadt to go to Reno, because I would be devastated to see those guys who I know are major league pitchers be in Reno. But it's just the situation we're in where the organization, whether they stick them in the bullpen or Reno, or we have a 7-man rotation, whatever this ends up looking like, they're going to have a lot of options available to them. And that's a really good feeling going into a year following the one where, between their top 5 guys, everyone but Brandon Pfaadt, combined for 344 days on the IL. That is almost a full calendar year. So you can't tell me that adding Corbin Burnes had something to do with that.
That's insane. All right. Well, we if you're watching on TV, make sure to join us over at gophnx.com. We're going to continue this conversation a little bit longer, but we appreciate you guys. We love our viewers, and come on over. Watch us a little bit more over at gophnx.com. And I hear completely what you're saying, especially when you say, like, how heartbreaking it is that talented guys that don't even deserve necessarily to be sent down or possibly moved to the bullpen might, just based on the situation. But again, I mean, I think in talking to these guys, they've all been through their ups and downs. Every player has been. They're all professionals, and I think they understand the situation, right? They hopefully they understand that it's not permanent and that they're doing this for the purpose of that depth, but also beyond. Like you talk about Mike Hazen thinking about that group of guys, like that's what a good general manager has to do, because if you're just too focused on the here and now, you're not game planning for what that future is going to look like. It sucks to say that the Diamondbacks have so many guys in walk years that they're going to potentially lose. I already love Josh Naylor. The thought of losing Josh Naylor at the end of the season already bums me out, let alone how much appreciation and how much I, as a fan, along with so many other fans, love Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly and don't want to see those guys leave. It's a very it's reality. It's a very possible reality that we are living in, and as the GM, Hayes has to kind of go that route too. He has to contingency plan on what the future is going to look like for this team. I feel like that's the biggest reason why the Corbin Burnes signing is so good, because I feel like it adds that bridge should the Diamondbacks lose their number 1 and number 2 guy in the starting rotation in the same offseason.
Yeah, it's stability, if nothing else, for the future.
Yeah.
And in regards to the starting rotation, I will kind of tease you with this. I did ask Mike Hazen very directly, do you have a plan if all 7 guys are healthy on opening day? Do you have a way to keep them all in the major leagues? I won't give you the answer to that right now. I'll have you go check out the podcast.
Oh my God.
But I will tell you this.
Any answers, Steve? What is this? Is this just an hour-long commercial for your podcast you didn't include me on?
Listen, Derek, I'm trying to teach you a thing or two about teasing here, okay? I will tell you this.
I give it away for free.
Hazen deflected, and he said, that's not up to me, that's up to Torey. So then I went and interviewed Torey, and I won't tell you his answer, but I also asked him the exact same question. So you can find that on the Dbacks Rattle On podcast.
You might be a terrible person. But yeah,
listen,
no, I mean,
they're thinking about this constantly, by the way.
They have to,
this
right?
is not something they take lightly at all.
I mean, again, it's that right there is the interesting one to me. Like, okay, everybody's healthy. How do you do it? How do you do it, right? And it's not to say there isn't a way to do it. It just feels like there isn't a way to do it because you and I understand this. Like, of course, a lot of fans a lot of people will say, like, why don't you just move them to the bullpen? And that limits your depth. That doesn't keep either of those guys, Ryan Nelson or Brandon Pfaadt, potentially, or whoever else doesn't make the starting rotation. If it's one of those guys in there, it doesn't keep them stretched out. It doesn't keep them available should that injury happen today and we need you in the starting rotation tomorrow, right? So that's the part where I think it gets tricky as far as how to maneuver around all of that if everybody is healthy.
Yeah, and I will say this about that specifically. I know in several of my conversations with Torey Lovullo over the last year, he has expressed on several occasions his regret for the way that things went with Drey Jameson when he first came up and was a starter. And then they asked him to be a reliever. They moved him to the pen, and then they needed him. So they stretched him back out very quickly. Yeah. And that's when he blew out his arm. And obviously that sets him back on an individual basis, basically a year and a half, 2 years. And thankfully we are going to see Drey Jameson this year, pitch in major league innings, I'm thinking. So that'll be really cool. But my point is, I think they regretted a little bit the way that they handled that, whether you really believe it's Torey's fault or not, which I don't.
Right.
But Torey, he's the kind of guy to shoulder the blame, whether it's his or not. And I wonder, are they more hesitant to put Ryan Nelson in the bullpen or Brandon Pfaadt in the bullpen or Jordan Montgomery in the bullpen where he was at the end of last season? Are they less likely to do that because of the way things went with the Jameson issue? Again, I don't think that was their fault. These things happen. I mean, injuries happen across baseball every single year, and they're just trying to prepare themselves for, if and when that does happen, knock on wood that it doesn't. But these things have come across before, so they have hard decisions to make. I just think that they want their best starting pitchers to be available to them if and when they need them.
It could be Torey's greatest asset as a coach, and also maybe his Achilles heel is caring too much, right? Like legitimately caring about people. I talked about it earlier, but I don't know, because again, that's that thing is that like it's hard for you, it's hard for you not to feel like you had some sort of impact on that situation that caused one of your players, one of your athletes to lose a year of his career, right? Because of what you were asking for him. But like you said, most likely at the end of the day, it really wasn't the reason why that went the way it did. You just have no way to ever really know, right? And Torey just cares so much about his players. We talked about it with the Suns situation and about how it feels like there's no love there, right? There's no family, there's no bonding between that team. And when you look at what this team has been able to do and how surprising they've been at times with Torey Lovullo as their manager, it's hard to not feel like that is a big factor. You know, again, the Perdomo thing, right? Times 1,000, because he's like the manager and he just has this like all-encompassing way to make not only the players feel like he loves them and thinks of them like his own children, but for those players to come together and form a family and become brothers because of his influence.
Yeah, I'll steal a word from the wall right behind you. Culture happens to be the exact perfect word for describing why Torey Lovullo is the manager that he is. Guys want to come and play for the Arizona Diamondbacks because they want to play for Torey Lovullo. I firmly believe that that's a factor. Yeah. There's been so many times in the past where people have asked me, you know, like, oh, what about this move? He went to the wrong guy in the pen that day, or, you know, he could have managed this situation better. And I'm like, okay, I understand on a game-to-game basis, you can make a lot of decisions different ways. What people don't see very often, the way that I get to see, the way that you get to see in the clubhouse, is the way that he handles this family that is a large group of men.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of dudes with a lot of different personalities and a lot of different motivations and a lot of different contract situations and things going on in their own personal lives. And somehow Torey Lovullo manages to steer that ship. And more often than not, he turns the correct direction. He pushes the right button.
Yeah.
And so I don't think managers in general get enough credit for that, because I think there's a lot of great baseball cultures around the sport. But Torey, there's a reason that he is the longest tenured manager in Diamondbacks history, and that he survived some of the statistically worst seasons in terms of winning percentage, and a reason that he is still here. And that is because players want to play for Torey Lovullo. They want to play their best for Torey Lovullo. And I think that it's no coincidence that he was kept around for a couple of those years, and then all of a sudden they go to the World Series. And then they win 5 more games. They win 89 last year. And even though they faced all that adversity we talked about, 344 days of having starting pitchers on the IL, they still win almost 90 games.
Oh my God. Say it louder for the people in the back, Steve. Say it louder. You're not wrong. Yeah. Like, because everything is always just such a big disappointment, right? Like, you won 89 games, but you didn't make the playoffs. It's like, I still don't know. And I asked this question a bit during the playoffs last year, like, would it have felt different if they did make the playoffs but got bounced in the wild card round? Does that make a big difference for you? I'm not saying that it's, you know, like, I understand making the playoffs is an important step, and more importantly, it's harder in baseball for you to not just make the playoffs but make it consecutive years, make it, you know, become one of those teams that's a contender every year, right? But you're right, the Diamondbacks have always kind of, and I guess credit to Mike Hazen and the front office for never really blaming Torey in those situations for it not necessarily being entirely his fault, right? Especially when you have one of the worst seasons in team history under his belt, but also one of the best seasons in team history, one of the best playoff runs in team history, I guess the second best in team history, right? So a big all the reason, you're right, is because of Torey, like sticking with him, allowing him to build that culture, to build the clubhouse the way that he does, and to allow talent to want to come here, and not only come here, but once they come here, stay here, you know, sign those extensions the way that Perdomo and Corbin and these guys did. It just, it's the only way that a team like this, competing with other teams that seem to have endless amounts of money, can compete, can be in the conversation, can possibly be, you know, not only in the playoffs, but a contender. So this has been great, Steve. I appreciate you coming on, even though it's been under like upsetting pretext with this whole, you know, you abandoning me and leaving me on for this whole thing. But I'll get over it. It's fine. Especially if you're replacing me more with Ryan Thompson, because that's a winning combination, the two of you guys.
Yeah, I encourage you to check out my new co-hosts, which are the Arizona Diamondbacks players and front office members and coaching staff.
I hate it.
Shameless plug one last time, Derek, because I know you want to go check out the podcast.
They're not as funny as me. They're they're not as funny as me.
They
Well, maybe
likely
some
will
of
not
them
be
are.
as funny as you. I can promise
All right.
you that. If that makes you feel better and sleep better tonight, then
Look.
yes, they will not be as funny. But the Dbacks Rattle On podcast, exclusively at dbacks.tv, which you guys should have anyway because you want to watch the games, right?
That's right.
And so they're up there right now. You can watch the video versions, and then the audio version goes out 48 hours later, 2 days later. So we've got, I think, 8 episodes up right now and a 9th one that I'm working on tonight. So lots of good stuff for Diamondbacks fans who want to hear more from their favorite players.
Good stuff, man. Yeah, go get all those answers to all that stuff he teased right now. Steve, I appreciate you so much for your time, buddy. And I'll see you probably in a day or two. We'll go walk around Salt River Fields again.
All right, Derek. Always a pleasure, and I'll see you at the ballpark, all right?
All right. Tell Bear I miss him when you see him next, because I miss him too.
I will. I will.
See you later. All right, y'all. Well, we thank you guys so much for hanging in there. That's Steve Zinsmeister. You can follow him at Steve_Zins, I believe is his. I probably should have left him on long enough to do that. But yeah, make sure you find him. Yeah, Steve_Zins, because he knows his name is way too long and complicated for you guys to find on Twitter. So follow him there. Excellent work. Yeah, he does a great job with the pregame and postgame stuff as well. But go check out that podcast. The only criticism, I should have burned him on this, but we need to get Steve a second mic for him to give to his co-host. Though I would find it hilarious if we did a show together and he had to hold the mic for me the way he does for the players. Anyway, that's the only criticism I have. Everything else he does is great, so I have to at least get him for that. But I do appreciate you guys so much for stopping by. Thank you guys for the chat. You guys are always awesome. We will be back. What is today? Today is Wednesday. I don't know what day of the week it is anymore. I don't even know what year it is anymore, but we'll be back on Friday with more on the Arizona Diamondbacks. So make sure to join us then. I will also have some more details on this godforsaken car trip that I'm going to take with Barry Bloom and Jack Summers. And let me tell you, one of the people in this equation is the problem, and it's definitely not Jack Summers. So I'll tell you that right now. I'm going to take bets on if these two gentlemen I'm driving with are going to get in a fist fight on the drive there. I'm giving like maybe 4-1 odds that that's definitely going to happen. But make sure to keep it locked to my social, especially my Instagram, because I might live stream that entire trip for sure. But make sure to follow me on Twitter. I'm at cap_caveman with a K. That's also my thing on Instagram, by the way. I'm using it more, so maybe follow me over there as well. Of course, our guy Kev is at largeintimateindustries.com. No, it's Kevo Posts. You can find our show at PHNX _Dbacks.
Don't look up that website, whatever you do. I don't know what that site might be, but whatever you do, it's not associated with anything I got going on.
Please don't Google
anything
it.
we got going on.
You didn't register it with anybody.
I didn't register it at all.
Yeah. We're gonna need to copyright it, I guess, but I don't know.
No, we're not.
Yeah, well, we want to get paid. So anyway, you can do all that stuff, but of course, all roads do lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We thank you guys so much for your time. Sorry that these shows are at an inconvenient time. It's so great for so many of you guys to still join us. I know we're doing 5 o'clock because, you know, it's the only time we can fit this in so that you don't have to choose between us and a Diamondbacks game. So we thank you guys so much for joining us. Like I said, we will be back on Friday. Until then, I want you all to behave yourselves. Hope you have a wonderful Thursday and a wonderful evening tonight. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's so much more fun when you don't go off and start a podcast without me and do it with players and expect that to be like better than the podcast you used to do with me, Steve.
We all silly like the mayor.